If we're looking at the hierarchy of the Neigong, then classically, Gods Qigong starts where Heaven and Earth Qigong finishes. So what do I mean by this? Heaven and Earth is the first Qigong in the water method to really go inside the body, to penetrate the shell, to go internal, to get the insides of your body really working. And there's a lot of Neigong threads that are put into Heaven and Earth to achieve that goal. But it doesn't go to the absolute end of possibilities within Neigong. But what it does do is really bring all the fundamental Neigong together and start to form a fabric of Neigong, a fabric of internal work. Then if you've done your homework, you've done your training, and you've achieved that level of practice where everything in Heaven and Earth is active, alive, and functioning well, then that becomes the springboard to go into God's playing in the clouds. And God's playing in the clouds takes all of those existing Neigong threads and takes them further, deeper into your system, more advanced, and then adds in all the pieces that are missing from Heaven and Earth Qigong. That is, whatever Heaven and Earth did not cover, that is within the field of Neigong practice, is completed in God's playing in the clouds. Now that's if you have done the process of going through things like Energy Gates Qigong to prepare the shell, Heaven and Earth Neigong to penetrate the shell and really bring alive various Neigong threads. Then you go to God's playing in the clouds. But if you haven't done all of that work within Heaven and Earth, when you go to God's, you first have to develop that Neigong which was covered by Heaven and Earth. And this can be done. And it can be done from a couple of perspectives. The first one is God's playing in the clouds is the largest, most expansive movements within our Neigong system. And therefore, it really stretches the body open and it generates deep connections. The spine, the ligamental system, into the organs, into the nerve roots and the spinal cord, into the cavities of the body, into all sorts of layers of qi. The interesting thing about Gods is that a beginner can learn the movements. It's not like the physical movements are the big deal. Yes? Neigong is about what's going on inside the body. So you could take something like Energy Gates Qigong, Cloud Hands from Energy Gates, and you could do Energy Gates up to the level of the internal content of Gods. So the shell of the movement, the shape of the movement, the form, as we call it, doesn't determine whether a beginner can do it or not. It's the internal content, it's the internal pressures, it's the qi work that will determine whether a beginner can do it or not. Now with God's playing in the clouds, the movements are big, they are expansive, and they are deep. It may take a beginner a while to get into the depths of God's Qigong, but it can be done. And if we look back at the history, God's Qigong is the original Qigong of the Taoists. It's the oldest of the longevity practices. It's the most powerful of the longevity practices. The other Qigongs were developed later to parcel up the Neigong, to make smaller packages that were more easily digestible by the student. And so you see, Gods with the entirety of the 16 Neigong becomes very complex if you only learn God's Qigong, because of all the layers of Neigong that you're trying to do in one simple movement. Because some of the movements in Gods are very simple. They're demanding, They're deep, but they're quite simple. The arms are always doing the same thing, whether it's this way, or if it's this way, it doesn't matter. The two arms are doing the same thing. So from that perspective, it's easy to learn the choreography. It's easy to learn the form. Now, what are you putting in that form? Are you just working with the movement? Are you working on the level of energy gates where you're connecting up your alignments? You're creating a basic bend and stretch in the body. You're relaxing into the motion. You're softening your body. You're increasing some blood and qi flow. But this is a very basic level of practice. And everybody starts there, unless they've gone through that doorway of something like heaven and earth. If you've covered that material in heaven and earth, when you come to Gods, you go deeper in. And so this is why it's a personal journey. You could have 50 people in the class, and each one of those individual people are playing Gods at a slightly different level, depending on their exposure to the Neigong, their ability to embody the Neigong they've learnt, and therefore each individual person is going to pick up on slightly different threads or slightly different information within the course. So if somebody can already open and close all their joints, they're going to quickly get into their cavities. If somebody can open and close their joints and their cavities, then they're going to get directly into the qi flows of the body. And this is where Gods differs from heaven and earth. Heaven and earth is designed to naturally ignite qi movement in the left and right channels. Gods playing in the clouds, the movements are designed to naturally move qi in the left, right, and central channels. So then you may ask, well, don't you move qi in the central channel in heaven and earth? And the answer is, if you've got to that level of practice, yes. But the form itself will not make that happen. The form of Gods will, to some degree, make the qi move in the central channel. Just because several movements, actually, the hands are passing down the center line of the body. And if you're doing that well, then the effect of moving qi in the etheric field, moving qi in your fascia will naturally get something happening in the central channel, if it's not too blocked. But there's no movement in heaven and earth where your hands are passing down the center line of the body. Everything's on the left and the right. So this naturally ignites movement of qi in the left and the rights. So as you go through the progression of this material, you're looking to, A, get the preparatory phases of Neigong online, which are the first 12 of the Neigong that comes up to the level of moving qi in the left and right channels. And then in Gods Qigong, you're looking at maintaining that, maintaining those 12 threads, maintaining and improving and deepening and advancing those 12 threads, plus introducing and working with the last 4 of the Neigong. And the last 4 of the Neigong, they form the completion phase of Neigong. The first 12 are the preparatory phases, opening up the layers of the body and coming into the core of the body. The last 4 complete that phase. And that's to do with the central channel, the dandians, and of course, unifying everything into one whole functioning piece. So this is very different in Gods to heaven and earth. One of the most direct ways of accessing your internal world, your organs, your blood, your fluids, your nerves, is through breathing. And this is one of the focuses in my upcoming courses. And breathing within God's plane in the clouds is a very powerful tool for de-stressing, for releasing anxiety, for getting the nervous system to run smooth, for balancing the emotions, and also for increasing the circulation of blood and qi. Also, the open and closing practices. The open and closing practices release the nerves. They shed tension from the body. They create a very yin and soft movement practice, and yet allow that practice to go really deep into the core. Now these two, breathing and open and closing, these are also used to unify. And the unification principle is such that the synergy is greater than the sum of the parts. So what are the parts? Well, they're all the other Neigong threads. So we'll be working through the alignments of the body to make sure that your body works well and the body is safe through practice. We will be looking at how to use the soft tissues, the bending and stretching processes that release residual tension and prevent you from building more tension through practice. And beginners really need to get this aspect, because if not, they'll be using reciprocal inhibition, which is a tension-based response in the body. It builds tension. So exchanging reciprocal inhibition for bend and stretch is the first step into the internal world. And when you've achieved this, then all these other threads are available. Everything from moving chi to opening and closing to unifying the body into one piece, all of this is available. But if you don't have bend and stretch, you don't penetrate the shell, and you don't release the residual tension. And remember, tension builds resistance, tension builds stress. So the releasing of the tension allows you to release stress and to calm the nerves and to soften the body. Also, we'll be looking at the specific layers of qi work. The qi in the etheric field, the qi through the meridian line system, the fascial system, the wei qi of the body, and also into the left, right and central channels. And the left, right and central channels of energy are what tell the rest of the body what to do. They govern the entirety of your energetic anatomy. And your energetic anatomy controls and governs the entirety of your physicality. So when you get access to the left, right and central channels, you start to clear out the core energy that is basically telling your body how to function. So even though we're going to be going through some very fundamental material, we're going to be also entering into the internal realm and going into some pretty advanced practices. How to move from the spine, the kwa and the lower dantian, or the three leaders, and how these join into one powerful engine. How to use the breathing processes within God's plane in the clouds to become the glue that unifies the Neigong into one whole piece of fabric. God's plane in the clouds is earth element Neigong. And the earth element is all about unifying and bringing everything together into one coherent whole. So we're not just talking about the body here. We are talking about a unification of body, mind and qi.